Okay, everyone that's standing, take a seat.
Shut up.
Somebody, oh, you're videotaping already. My friend Fern is videotaping, which I love. Love, love, love. Okay, I'm going to do it because... Okay. All right. My friend Laura owns property in San Miguel, so I invited her to let us to hear about that when the time is right. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay.
This music.
Oh yeah, the music has to be turned off. You know how to just close the lid of the computer, Dana? Perfect. Okay.
That's easy.
All right. I am going to be sitting, I think. Yeah, although I can't see everybody. Okay, so thank you all for coming. You're all interested in San Miguel, and there's good reason to be. I'm going to present to you a lot of the reasons San Miguel is an extraordinary place in the earth right now, in the world. And at the end, after I tell you all the wonderful things about it, I'm going to share the challenges, because there are people that maybe want to live there, maybe want to retire, and there are real challenges, but I'm going to end with that. So I want to start by saying that Yahoo News has reported that searches for moving abroad the day after the election shot up 1,500%. 1,500%. Yeah, really. That's a staggering number. But here's some more statistics. My friend Sonia Diaz, who's the leading immigration specialist in San Miguel, she has a book which I recommend, Moving to Mexico Bible. She sold 500 books soon after the election, more than she had sold 6 months prior. And here's my favorite, CNBC Business. In the hours following the presidential race being called for, no name, nearly 30,000 people and counting visited the website for Expatsy, a travel company that offers scouting trips to help Americans move abroad.
Wow.
In one day, we had more website traffic than all of 2022. Wow. They went out, she said, and they went out fast, preferably before the inauguration. Wow. All right, a couple other key points here. We have a Mexican president, a woman, a Jewish woman, a Nobel Prize winning scientist, not independently, I will add, she worked on a climate control program where it was called like an intergovernment council, which included Al Gore. So everyone on the committee received the Nobel Prize. She has communist parents from Lithuania and Mexico, which was barely mentioned in the election. She won by a true landslide, 60%. Wow. 60%. She received her PhD in energy engineering. Her doctoral research was conducted at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, comparing energy consumption trends in Mexico with those of other industrialized countries, the new president of Mexico. So talk about reality turning upside down. That's, to me, one of the perfect metaphors, although it's a reality. Robert Reich owns a home in San Miguel.
Oh.
All right, so then I brought something here to show you. Okay, this isn't very attractive to be walking away from everybody, but I have to show you something. This is what Mexicans think about Donald Trump. I wasn't going to mention his name. El Presidente del Terror.
Yeah.
Okay, but I covered it up right here. But you can see. So if anyone's interested, I think this would make a very wonderful dartboard or your inaugural alternative party. Anything else that you have going during the holidays, you just put it on a foam board and use it as a dartboard. Okay, so I want to tell you just a bit about myself. I think most of you know that I moved to San Miguel in 2000 after my bookstore closed. And the turning point was when I was walking around and everyone told me how much they were sad the bookstore closed. And I couldn't stop crying. It was just the biggest heartbreak. I couldn't drive by the building. I lived in the neighborhood. And I realized I could stay in Berkeley and be depressed, probably for the rest of my life, about this loss. Or I could start a new life. And I chose life. I chose happiness. I said, I can't do this. I can't stay here. I'm feeling too much sadness. and I had lost my capacity to go out to work. So I wanted a time out. You know what that means?
Mm-hmm.
People know what that means in U.S. culture. Time out. She's shaking her head no. It's not that familiar, but I was able, because I had sold a house here in North Berkeley, to take a time out from 4 years before I started my new company, Abrazos, which is a fair trade store that Fern and I are compañeras in the Fern trade value system in Centro Histórico, in a central part of San Miguel de Allende. And we employ all women seamstresses.
Okay, good question.
Yeah.
What happened to the bookstore?
Amazon apocalypse.
Oh.
Yeah, we had to close.
Yeah.
So I chose San Miguel, and many people do, for possibilities. We're all looking for new possibilities. But what it comes down to is it has a high quality of life. And I think for many of us, we feel this decline of the quality of life, certainly from when we were growing up. And we want something different, we want something new. And what you hear when you have friends in San Miguel, they'll say things like, and this is not, I took this right off Facebook, these are quotes. I live in a state of daily joy. You don't hear that so much. I've never been happier. I go from euphoria to ecstasy all day long. These are the happiest 30 years of my life, a friend in his 80s. A woman who just moved here, I said, Lynn, you just moved here. What do you have? Give me your experience. She said, I feel like I've stepped through the wardrobe doors and coming out into Narnia, San Miguel. A brilliant alternative universe. Because what it is, and I'm telling you this, and for those who have never been, you may doubt me, what you enter into is a kinder, a more compassionate, a less stressed, a more caring culture that have a lot more fun than Americans. People know how to have fun. Mexicans, I'm not talking specifically San Miguel. There's also a bicultural community. It's actually more than bi, because there are people from all over the world, but the predominant cultures are Mexican and from the US. And you have this sense that you're in this family of humanity. I mean, of course there's separation. Of course we each cling to people in our communities that speak our own language. For better or for worse. We lose out when we do, but it's what happens when you don't speak a second language. But there's a general sense that people care for one another, that they're open and trusting. For example, I have a friend who has had this walking down the street, and a woman said, you look so interesting. Could I invite you to my home to come and have tea and talk? Nancy Lietzau. She was so shocked. She had never had that happen in her entire life. A stranger. And the other story I love is a friend of mine got into an accident on his motorcycle, and he said when he opened up his eyes, he saw like 25 people gazing down at him with so much compassion. It was like he was shocked. I mean, he was so moved. And then when he got to the hospital 2 days later, the guy who hit him came to the hospital to apologize. So you get the sense people aren't frightened of each other. People aren't concerned about, lawsuits and what's going to happen in strangers. Ernesto says it reminds him of 1950s, 60s, 70s, that era that we all grew up in, many of us. Part of it, I think, has to do with the family system. In Mexico, people still have very deep connections in the family with generations, so there's multi-generations, and you see a lot of tenderness and touching amongst the family play in the Jardín, the Plaza of San Miguel. So here's another trusting story, my favorite, happened to me. So I was at my store and I had to go get something. So I dropped some things off going up this nearby street, and the clutch on a hill went out of my car. And I'm like, So I jump out, I'm like, me clutch. Me clutch. And the taxi driver behind me got out of his car and said, you drive my taxi, I drive your car. And there was money in his taxi and a passenger. So he drove to a garage, and I was driving his taxi. I only wish people had seen me doing that. It was so much fun. But that kind of trust, that kind of, I'm here to help you. I want to, this is...
That's remarkable.
Yeah. So you have the Mexican people, and then you have the expats, and the nature of the foreign immigrant community is unlike. I mean, I've lived in great places. Berkeley, what can be better? Mill Valley, Ojai, California, Levittown, Pennsylvania. But you have I think, in the foreign community of San Miguel, a group of people that have qualities that are just kind of like your dream community, maybe what you have in Burning Man. And I'm going to say that what I'm sharing with you is my experience. You will find plenty of people that will have other experiences. This is mine. Generally, I find, and many of us will agree, foreign people tend to be supportive because we're all in this together. We want to assist each other in making a good life for ourselves. Adventurous, to go to a foreign country. Curious, open-minded, engaged, learned and perpetually learning. Artistic, generous, open-minded, adaptable, cosmopolitan, well-traveled, cultured, mostly progressive, and pretty darn smart. Also, annoying, judgmental, bothersome, ignorant, and there are many Republicans. So we got them all, baby. We got them all. You can say that one of the finest qualities of San Miguel is the ease of making friends. And I think about that a lot. How is it that you can my friend Susan Fastberg says, you have to be like a really serious misanthrope. You have to be an extreme misanthrope not to meet people and make friends. Partly it has to do with the fact that we walk around a lot. It's a pedestrian area, so people are always passing each other. And the street, the restaurants, the plazas, everything's accessible. It's like right there with you. So you see the same people. Like, Patricia, I don't know if you remember, but when you came to visit, we were walking around and you said, my God, you know so many people. And I said, no, it's just that we walk on 5 streets, all of us. Hidalgo, Solano, Canal, So, there's a lot of talking to people and seeing each other and inviting each other places. And Ernesto says, if you lose a friend to death or moving away, you gain 2, just like that. So there's a general wanting to meet people because you're alone in a foreign country. High level of camaraderie. And now the types of San Miguel people: artists and creatives, retirees, remote workers, digital nomads, young people, and mostly, but not all, reinventors, new chapter seekers, people in the third age of life, family seeking a multicultural environment. That's increasingly more so than it has ever been in the last 5 years. Hippies and seekers immersed in yoga, meditation, wellness, right? Things we like. So, as I say, and I often will use this if I'm being interviewed, what makes San Miguel so distinctive, what makes it such a wonderful place to live, is that it's slow. It's a slow-moving culture. It's sensual, the beauty of it. It's spirited. There's a sense of the spirit. There's actually it's a very religious community, actually, but the spiritual side of life, too. Supportive, stunningly beautiful, serene, but when places are serene and slow, they're often boring. San Miguel is sophisticated, it's alive, it's dynamic. So there's the balance of all those is quite unusual. The slowness is a good part of it, I think, has to do with the traffic. The streets are very narrow, so you don't have rushing traffic, so everything kind of moves slowly. And it's not unusual for people to go out and have 2, 3, 4 hour lunches, and you can hang out in a cafe or restaurant all day without anyone bothering you. Long conversations are frequent on the sidewalks. You can sit in the main plaza for hours. And there's an ease of scheduling. This one I can't wrap my mind around, but if you say, I want to see you, a friend will say, well, come over tomorrow, or see you, Saturday. But here, it can take 2 to 3 weeks. Why is that? We don't have to answer. But there's a spontaneity and an openness, a spaciousness to life there. So the other factor, I think, is that San Miguel has rich traditions. It's a traditional society. Everything I said, you would think, oh, it's, past all that. No, there's still indigenous dances and processions that have been going on for hundreds of years with the same families doing these traditions. Festivals, there's a festival, the Loco Parade, where everybody dresses up in costume. Thousands of people in crazy costumes having a good time all afternoon. So Mexico, or San Miguel, sorry, is called the fiesta capital of Mexico. Literally, there's a fiesta, a festival, a procession, like it seems like every week there's something huge and entertaining and enjoyable going on. And there's the Catholicism and the indigenous combined. The Chichimecan Indians are the indigenous Indians of that region, and Catholicism is very, very strong. There are a lot of churches. But the dances go on in front of our large cathedral, or parroquia, cathedral-like. And so you have this blending of the indigenous and the Catholicism that is kind of characteristic of Mexico, but it's more visible, very visible in San Miguel. San Miguel is the cradle of independence from the country. It's where the revolution from the Spaniards occurred. So Mexicans have a deep emotional feeling about San Miguel. So when I used to travel a lot more in the country, I would say, well, I'm from San Miguel de Allende, and they would go, oh, San Miguel de Allende. Oh, like this. It's an emotional center of the country. Would you agree with that, Laura? There's something very heartful. Yeah. And the symbol of San Miguel is a heart. It's called the Corazón de México. Okay. I see a lot of this with my employees. One of my seamstresses makes the costumes for the indigenous dancers. I mean, she's one of them. And my employees, one of them blesses herself whenever she comes to work and leaves the store. So people have deep spirituality. That is how they, they've had it since they were their whole, it's a legacy in the culture and visible in San Miguel. At the same time, it's a very technological society. So excellent internet, outstanding internet. A lot of people can help you with your problems technologically. A lot of brainiacs working on the big issues, and a lot of conversations about technology. The festivals and cultural events are phenomenal and free. For example, the Gypsy Kings just played in the center of San Miguel, a free concert.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Lila Downs has come several times, maybe 3-4 times. Herbie Hancock just gave a concert. Free, underwritten by the government. Opera stars, pop stars whose names I don't know, but it's, it's, yeah, really. In addition, there's an artisans market where they have traditional crafts and art from all over the country. But San Miguel is its own art center, craft center with the indigenous artisanal, and then the arts, contemporary arts, in a place called Fabrica Aurora, where many artists have their galleries and studios. Okay, everybody wants to know about food. Yeah. San Miguel has a huge food culture. For example, lots of world-class chefs, award-winning chefs, open restaurants or come in to make special meals. As well, you can get an inexpensive Mexican meal, $10, $12, $13. As well, street food, if your stomach allows it. As well, farmers markets, vegan, everything. We practically have everything. Now, we don't have all the cuisines that you would find in the Bay Area. That it's coming, but it's not, like Greek or Korean. But there are new restaurants opening up. It's become, a friend just said that, no, it actually wasn't a friend. The mayor just had a video this week, and he said San Miguel was voted the #1 culinary destination in Mexico, Travel and Leisure magazine. Yeah, I know, Laura. I agree, Laura. So the ease of eating well, the ease of eating delicious organic food. Yeah, we all have our thoughts on that. It's quite easy to have a really great experience if you're a foodie. Also, the wellness, there are hot springs surrounding San Miguel. Massages, $40 are not unusual. You really don't need a car unless you live on the outskirts. It's been car-free in the center of town with around, no, I've been car-free for 20 years. Bless you, bless you. Okay. Have you heard enough? I'm not done. Okay. Music, 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 and music. There are so many music venues. Laura knows because she's a dancer, and you can go to about, 10 clubs or something, playing world-class jazz, world-class rock and roll. I mean, some people just make a life of going out every night to dance and music. I'm not kidding. As well, we have 3 different opera companies.
Really?
Yeah. Classical music played in the churches gorgeously. And if there is an opera or a classical, you would love this. I just saw this came in on Facebook. There's an opera, a rock and roll opera happening it was produced in Toronto and was just in New York. And it's coming to San Miguel, $20 for the tickets. This is not unusual. Tickets $15, $25. Okay, writing, memoir, fiction, play reading, comedy, any kind of class that you want, anything. Spanish classes, Spanish groups, Spanish teachers. There are at least 50 book groups for women and men. Author readings through the San Miguel Writers Conference. The keynote speaker this year just won the National Book Award. Political lectures are held. Hedrick Smith just spoke. A Supreme Court Justice expert just spoke. Anthropologist Wade Davis. And discussion groups galore. One just started in the last couple weeks. I love the name. Like a support discussion group called the Dystopian Lifeboat. Pretty good name, right? Pretty good name. Game clubs, mahjong, bridge, card games, quilting and sewing arts and classes, cooking classes, tours to the archaeological zones. I never knew our town had so much until I started making this list. Athletics, pickleball is insane. Everybody wants to play pickleball. Hiking clubs. It lacks bike lanes. That we don't have. Audubon, Mexico started in San Miguel. There's a very active Democrats Abroad group. World-class cactus conservation park and multiple movie theaters showing everything from Hollywood blockbusters to, what do they call those? Independent, offbeat. Yeah. These are just the fun things we can do for culture. Okay. Any altruist in the group? Anybody that cares about other humans? The altruistic possibilities are staggering. We have 150 nonprofits in San Miguel. Everything from working with children, elders, social justice, nonviolence, maternal health, tutors in English for the young people, English language skills, computers, teaching computers to the kids, small business mentors for women and college graduates, dog and cat rescue, big time. That's a huge, huge thing in San Miguel. All right. You want to hear about health? Okay. Medicare is not accepted.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Huh.
Medicare is not accepted.
That's right. It's in Mexico.
There is a group that claims that they can get reimbursement, but it has to be an emergency, so even if you're going in for, a minor thing, you have to get admitted to the emergency room and apply and hope it gets accepted. So people are trying to finagle it, but Medicare will not accept payment from a Mexican.
Really?
Will not pay your Mexican bills. The medicine there is kinder and it's more human-centered. For example, doctors regularly give you their cell phones. And I have called my doctor at 9 o'clock at night, and he answered. A friend came to San Miguel, and I said, this doctor is very responsive. The doctor was in the supermarket, and she helped her. And this wasn't even her client. So the doctors there do a different kind of medicine. They're not on the clock. My surgeon, I had five surgeries with him, one from a different doctor. There's no computer in his office. He doesn't have a cell phone. He stands there and looks at me, puts his hand on my knee, eye-to-eye contact, as long as I need. I have had consultation with him for 45 minutes. staph infection. He wanted to make sure I was totally comfortable with his operation. That's a different kind of medical care that we don't know here,
Yeah.
right? Not being on a timer.
Can you elaborate on a few things there? So how are people paying for,
Out of pocket.
it's
It's
all
also
out of
cheaper though,
pocket?
right?
Oh, it's significantly cheaper. So my surgeon, who's one of the tops in the country, trained in Germany, trained in New York, trained in San Miguel. When I see him, which I go back to once a year for checkups, and when I was seeing him frequently, it's like $40 when I started. Now it's up to 50 or 60.
And what is the quality in the training of medical care in
Excellent.
hospitals?
These are doctors who are trained all over the world.
Okay.
And really, you haven't, anything, okay, let me just make this clear. Anything you've ever been told about Mexico is probably wrong. Probably wrong. Exaggerated, misinformed, racist, biased. When you live there and you meet with people, like any of us that would go to a doctor, my friends, all of us, we're like, can you believe that doctor had their wall floor to ceiling with credentials? They're human beings treating other human beings. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you keep your Medicare here?
I do.
Okay.
That's a very good question, because most of us go back and forth in order to get checkups, for example, or cardiology, whatever, and major operations. So people get the operations here and then see doctors there for like follow-up or initial, like if they're having heart concerns, they can see a cardiologist. And you can name a field of medicine. There are going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 specialists, either, if not in San Miguel, in Querétaro, which is a major medical center in Mexico. There are 5 hospitals.
Hey, Pete. I had a question about your status. Do you have to go in and out of the country?
That's coming up.
Okay, great.
Yeah. People use Medivac. I think it's $2,500 or $1,500. Do you know a year for Medivac?
25.
It's 25. Okay. And they if you're having surgery, you have to qualify certain things, and then they take you in a private airplane, and they will bring you to the nearest airport. So many friends have used Medivac to leave the country. We just opened our first hospice center. So hospice has arrived. Hospitals are now asking people to pay up front. So I kept my American Express card for this reason. If you're paying for okay. Let's see. There is Mexican health insurance. A friend was telling me about it. I don't have it. It's $5,000 deductible, and it costs $7,500 a year.
Is it $5,000 deductible?
$5,000 deductible, and it's $7,500 a year. And she's in her late 70s. Dental tourism is huge. People go to San Miguel. I had 12, 6 upper, 6 lower crowns, $4,200 for 12
I had a
crowns.
medieval root canal.
You had a what?
A medieval root canal.
A medieval.
So you gotta be careful.
Let me just say, things happen. People die in hospitals. People have problems with doctors. I don't mean to imply every doctor's a perfect specimen. Things happen to human beings in the operating table. All right, I'm going to keep moving along here. Vet service is outstanding. You can bring your animals in, and they're treated with the vet services in San Miguel, about 15 different vets. The climate is temperate. Right now it's about 40 degrees in the mornings and 80 degrees in the afternoon, 70 to 80. We mostly have freedom from natural disasters. Drought is a problem. And we have water level concerns in the aquifers. But we don't have earthquakes or forest fires or, volcanoes or hurricanes. We are close to major cities and the U.S. border, which is one reason I decided to live there. I wanted to be able to visit my parents, who were both living when I moved there. And you can travel the world from Mexico City. It's an international airport.
Can you tell real quick, is my first issue here, geography, where?
Right
What
in the
part of-
middle of the country.
It's in the middle.
It's about
and-
4 hours from Mexico City, 4 hours from Guadalajara, 4 hours from Monterrey, about 10 hours from the border if you're driving, 10 to 12.
Oh, okay, so you said it's near the US border, but it's 10 hours
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Is there
It's a two, like, people go to Leon, which is about an hour and a half away, and they fly to San Antonio, which is about an hour and a half flight. So, you know, if you needed to get out quickly for some reason. Yes?
I was just asking the nearest airport.
Leon and Querétaro, and they're equal, about an hour and a half each. Mhm. Okay, security. Of course, people always think Mexico's a dangerous place. Well, every place is a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Every place on earth. The security issues are mostly around pickpocketing and around purses being stolen. That's not minor, and it's serious when it happens because people carry all their residential cards. You know, it's terrible. And going to the police is also terrible because they'll keep you there for hours doing endless stamping and reporting and blah, blah. So you want to you want to use your head. You want to be smart. You don't want to lose a friend I saw on Facebook, not a friend, somebody left her purse in a big crowded organic market with everything in it and walked away. So you don't do those kinds of things. There are home thefts. They're not so often, but home thefts do happen. Violent crimes are rare for foreigners because they don't want to mess with us. So people say, oh, you know, the drug wars, cartels, it's so dangerous, violence, death. Yes, it is. It's dangerous for Mexicans that go out in bars. They want to be out with their friends. You can, you know, bars, cantinas, late at night, 2, 3 in the morning, you know, dealing drugs, selling drugs, using drugs. These are dangerous activities in Mexico. So you avoid them at all costs. But a friend wanted me to tell the story that she was mugged in San Miguel, and she screamed, and all these people came out of the house and started running after the guy, yelling, catch him, catch him. So, you know, getting back to what I said earlier, it's a different ethos around, you know, fear, right? People are like, somebody's hurting, we're going to capture that guy. And they did, and she got her things back. Yeah, okay. Affordability. So people, of course, want to know about housing. I bought my house for $105, but that was 20 years ago, and put, you know, a bit of money into it. Few houses are in that price range. If they are, they're in neighborhoods, you know, maybe you want to live there or not. They're just on the outskirts, predominantly Mexicans. Maybe the homes aren't all gentrified, but you can find inexpensive properties for fixer-uppers. Not that easy, but you can. But the majority of homes, I would say, run about $250 would be your basic, and going up to $20 million. So homes run a vast. But, you know, it's not hard to find a $300,000 home. I actually had one. A friend just posted this. Do you know Jeff Kimmel? You know him? Okay. Anyway, he just posted what looks to be a gorgeous home for $339,000.
Did you post that on Facebook? I saw that.
Yeah.
It looked great.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
I can't find it. And then there's rentals. Oh, I want to talk about this. The homes have to be paid in cash. You can get a mortgage. The minimum home purchase that can be financed is $350,000, and you need to put 40% down, and then the interest rate is 10 to 12%. So it's not exactly a deal. So Laura, you want to talk
Yes.
about your property?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's hard to even add anything to what you've said.
Thank
Done a
you,
good
Laura.
job. But I will add just a couple of things. I first went to San Miguel de Allende in 1971 when I was 10 years old. Don't do the math. Because my mom's friend had an exchange student from there, and so we went down. And it's like from my childhood, everything was in black and white except San Miguel de Allende. It was just, we were free to walk the streets. It was so colorful. We went to Spanish classes, and at 10 years old, you're a sponge, and you just, you know, want to talk to all the other kids, so you pick up Spanish. And of course, so then I went back in 2007 writing a magazine article about women reinventing themselves in San Miguel de Allende. I didn't know Patrice then, I would have profiled her. But, you know, it had changed a lot, but I still felt kind of in love with it again. So without intending to, I came upon a little property, and when I say little, I mean it's 11 and a half feet wide by like 42 feet long. Like a townhouse, but in a fabulous location in the centro. And I bought it. I mean, it was it was rubble. There was nothing there. Everyone thought I was insane. And I met a 32-year-old architect who was brilliant, and she walked in and said, I'm going to build a jewel box, and she did. Just fabulous, modern, filled with light. I don't know how she did it, but that was the best case scenario. And then the worst case scenario was the house next door that I bought, which had a lot of object lessons in how not to buy property. I knew the owners. The father of 9 kids had died, and one of the kids was living in the house, and he was kind of a drug addict, and so he kept jumping into my house. Like I remember when we built it, I was like, well, nobody can possibly get into this house. It's a fortress, except for that neighbor. And using my internet, and you know, there's a picture of him wearing all my clothes in the sposas. They call the handcuffs spouses, which is very sexist, meaning spouse. You know.
Oh my God.
But anyway, I found out that they were wanting to sell the property. They were glad that I hadn't pressed charges. So anyway, I bought this property without a realtor, and don't ever do that because they didn't have the deed. Long story short, it took me 5 years to get the deed. And I just signed for it like 2 weeks ago. So I live in one a lot of the time, and then Airbnb, both of them. Airbnb taxes, it's no longer an advantageous situation at all. Taxes at this point are about 30% on top of whatever you were charging for the Airbnb between feds, state, local, whoever. On top of that, you have to pay the city 40,000 pesos, so like $2,000 per property that you're going to rent. And on top of that, you know, a lot of, you know, everything's gone up in price. So what once was a sort of attractive situation where you were, you know, renting your house to travelers has turned also into big business, you know, as people have bought up a lot of houses, as has happened in many cities, just to Airbnb them. So I would say if you're thinking about going down, buying a property and hoping to Airbnb it, the market is saturated, and you're going to have to pay about 30% on top of whatever it is you get, plus have an administrator, plus have a, you know, housekeeper, plus. So that's a, not very viable situation. Another thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people go down there and just kind of buy a house, and all of a sudden they're like, this town seems pretty small to me. You know, it's not for everybody. So I think it's really important if you are thinking about moving to go and rent for a while. Figure out where you want to be in the city. Don't just fall in love with a house and decide that's where I'm going to be. Don't be as impulsive as me and buy the first thing you see. So, and then I guess the other thing that I would say is how important it is to speak Spanish, at least to try to speak Spanish. I speak Spanish very well. I have a little bit of a sponge with languages, and it makes life so much easier, and it's so much more interesting. I figure I'm in Mexico to be among Mexicans. I don't want to go down there to spend all of my time with Americans. I can do that here. I love Mexicans. It is a different culture. Many people just tend to be so much more compassionate. So it's taken me years. I've now had my first house there 15 years. And it's really taken me a lot of that time to get to the point where my major friend group in Mexico right now is Mexican, where I speak Spanish 100% of the time with them. And I still have, some, expat friends here and there, like Patrice, but for the most part, my community is Mexican, and that has taken me a lot of work. But I think that that's work that pays off over and over and over by being able to communicate with the people who live there.
Are there many people that buy places down there as like a second home?
There's a lot of second homes down there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what mine was, and that's, my point. If you're thinking that your financial model is going to be buy a second home and then rent it, you're going to find that you have a huge amount of competition and there's a lot of taxes to pay, et cetera, et cetera.
More so buy a second home to go to when it's cold up here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that.
People do that.
But you also have to think about things like if you have a housekeeper, you can't just pay your housekeeper when you're there. It's a job for them, and you have to pay their Social Security, so that's going to be a full-time job for somebody. Including when you're gone, you want a housekeeper there to have eyes on the property. So,
So is renting always Airbnb? Like, let's say you have
no, that's a really good question, because I'm trying to transition my rentals as well away from Airbnb. There are property managers or rental agents, who will rent for you and handle the lease and all of that sort of thing. VRBO was there, pulled out, but I've heard they're coming back.
Did you mean rent the second property that you own, or rent as somebody going down there?
Suddenly having this vision, live up here for the few months under nice weather, and then go down there. So when wouldn't be there, not do Airbnb, but maybe rent it out for 6 months.
So people have homes that they rent, yes.
Yeah.
But most people want a long-term, let's say year lease, or a month to month. But yes, people do go down and rent for 3 months, a year. Kristen's looking for a place.
There's a lot of people on, there's a couple of Facebook groups, San Miguel de Allende Civil List, another one, San Miguel de Allende Rentals. People post things, and then I think what I would do is go down short term, whether it's Airbnb or whatnot, get to know the city, connect with a rental agent, directly, see a few homes, and then rent. And a lot of people who come stay in my houses do that. They're like, I'm going to come stay in your house for 2 weeks, look around, and then find a sort of like 6 month or 3 month rental. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people will come back to those rentals year after year after year. You had a question.
Yeah, just your friends a lot of your friends that are Mexican. So there isn't like a walled expat community that's separated from the rest of the community.
Not at all.
It's sort of intermixed.
Yeah.
Not literal wall, but there is a psychological wall, but not literal. You don't have an area that's purely foreigners that I can think of.
No.
Mexicans live amongst Americans or foreigners.
Yeah, that's good.
It's an intermixed
A lot of
society.
it, though, is a willingness to be able to experience the discomfort of being around people who aren't speaking your language, and experience the discomfort initially of not being able to speak very well.
Not getting your ideas across.
Yeah, but there's, and there are certainly people, expats, who are pretty much into their community, where they like their social community, they're golfing, they're this, they're that, it's all expat. So there are various different communities, and then some that are very mixed. So,
Have you run into any like co-housing or eco-village type situations?
no.
I have not heard of it. You want to start one? Why not? Yes.
What's the male to female ratio these days in the expat community?
13 to 1.
It feels like
1 to 13.
No, wait a minute. You actually heard that, Laura?
I have heard that. 1 male to 13 females.
That's. I haven't gotten to the difficulties of living there. People want to hear about the difficulties. Let's hear about the difficulties. So I just want to wrap it up, but I want to say I know Laura's houses, and they're incredible. really
Okay.
outstanding properties, and they're in a great neighborhood. Her street is one of my favorites in all of San Miguel.
Wow.
Okay, those are in the
I
back.
have
We're gonna collect from you. Remember,
I'm just curious.
Phoebe,
Yeah.
could you get the
I'm
people?
on it. $10 everyone.
Okay, so affordability, I addressed the housing, right? The housing rentals, I have a friend who paid, and for years, paid $300 a month for her apartment. So it's possible, if you're willing to rent in neighborhoods that, you know, aren't the spiffiest, say, you can find 300 to 500. Most rentals, 1 bedroom, maybe 1,200, 1,500. 2 bedrooms even, so they're a lot less, and in some ways similar to here. In dollars, you can rent in pesos, it's always better. What did you find, Kristen, when you were looking?
A wide price range, but kind of you get what you pay for. I saw
Yeah.
places for $1,000 in neighborhoods that, you know, I wasn't thrilled about, and then I saw places closer to $4,000 a month. But yeah, just a wide range.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's say 400 to 4,000.
And a lot of it is location. So
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
smack in the
Certain
centro, it's going to be a lot more expensive. And then as you sort of go up the hills, where it's like a cab drive to get home, that becomes more space for less money.
Yeah.
I mean, a friend just rented a property on I've never been to this part of San Miguel, it's way, 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 way at the top. And it was 5 bedrooms, and so she brought her sisters and family, and it was, for a vacation rental, they each paid $60 a night, so it was at $300 a night. But a huge property, but because it was way at the top, and you can't, I mean, you can walk if you're a hiker, but it's difficult to get to. So a lot of it does depend on how much, because San Miguel is a city of hills, and if you're in the base in the center, they can get a lot more money. Okay, so what is less expensive? What is more affordable? Food and restaurants generally, culture and the arts without a doubt, health and wellness mostly. I mean, people pay a lot less than we do here. Traveling by bus, super cheap. Taxis, like $2.50 anywhere, most anywhere in town.
Up to 4 now, it's 80 pesos everywhere.
Oh, that's true. What am I thinking? That's
Uh,
absolutely
that's
true.
$4.
Thank you, Laura.
The Ubers are
$4.
cheaper.
Ubers can be cheaper. Okay, and your feet are very inexpensive, right? You can walk. Tech services. I pay $12 an hour for a young man to do all my computer work. Telcel, my phone, $25 a month. Lets me use it in 3 different countries. Home repairs and services. Really a lot less expensive. I just
You
had a
owe
new
$25 a month, and that is phone and internet?
Mhm.
That's
the
great.
plan. It's an annual plan.
Right.
He did an entire wall and plumbing and charged me $100. It took him, there were 3 guys working, it took him all day. You want to give him a $100 tip. Home taxes, I pay about $200 a year in my home. 3
That's
bedroom.
$37 a year.
Thanks a lot, Laura.
That's a lot smaller.
I know. No, I have 3 levels and 2 gardens, so my lot is bigger. Business rentals, I have a bodega, a storage unit, 250, and it's as big as this room. Car repairs, parking, and licensing, it's significantly less. Okay, challenge. Oh, I want to just wrap up the positive by saying, as a operating principle, you could say in San Miguel, the U.S. is not the center of the universe. Okay? The U.S. is not the center of the universe. Experiences, learning are central. Creativity, family, giving back, enjoying life, major important values in life. For some people, I'm talking now about the expats, exploring their creativity is a major motivation to live there. Giving back, very big, basic, fundamental principle for many foreigners. A lot of foreigners are very hugely invested in the philanthropic community. Living well for less and enjoying life more and having the freedom to be. That would be my description. Okay, now, challenges. Learning a new language. It's very challenging at our age. But, as Laura said, can be the difference between quality of life and not. So there are courses you can take, there are things you can do online. There are ways to learn. You just have to make it a priority, and you have to resist the urge to always be with your English-speaking friends. And you have to practice even if you sound like a fool. I once got into a taxi with, or not a taxi, my own car at the time, with a worker, and he said in Spanish, "Where are we going?" And I said, "A mi cama." Do you know what that means? I meant to say "a mi casa," "a mi casa." And the guy looked like this, and then he opened the door, and he got out, and he was like this. His shoulders were shaking so hard, but they don't want you to see that you're laughing at you, right? So he pretended like something had fallen. That was my worst.
And he's still telling that story.
No, we all. Mexicans don't have that sense of like gossiping or like I'm gonna get back at them for telling this bad story, because they don't want you to know they find you so amusing. But I'm sure they do. I'm sure they go home and tell stories. We all have examples.
Can I add something for that? In case anybody doesn't know about the Pimsleur system for learning languages, it's fantastic. It's kind of expensive. It's only audio, and if they have a tape or recording. If you listen the lessons are 30 minutes long. At my age, I have to listen to it twice a day. But 20 years ago, I could listen to it once a day, and in 30 days, you are fluent. Any language. Basic fluency. I mean, the kind of fluency where you can get directions, order in a restaurant, and carry on a basic conversation, so that if you're there and you avoid speaking English, then you grow and develop
that's a wonderful
vocabulary.
Course. How do you say it again?
Pimsleur, Pimsleur.
Okay.
Also, just start watching whatever you watch on TV, whatever movie you watch with the Spanish subtitles on it.
Yeah, that's good.
And probably a class with other people versus.
Well, he's saying a class with other people. I am not so sure. People say that I respect that having a private tutor is a lot better, and the tutor will not speak English. But in classes, they tend to like speak English off to the side, and I mean it's one way of learning. So challenges: you will meet new people, and they will know not one single thing about you. They don't know any of your personal history. They don't know your family. They don't know your background. They don't know your career, and guess what? They don't even care. People really don't care about whether I own Gaia Bookstore and it broke my heart to close it and I had 3,000 authors. They could care less. It just doesn't interest most people who you were before. They want to know who you are now, what you're doing, what you're excited about, what made you move here. It's a lot about the present moment and what your life is about. You okay, Phoebe?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Sorry, no, I'm
There's a
okay
chair
standing
right
here.
here.
Oh, there's a chair. I'm good.
So it's about the present moment, wonderful moment, and life is centered in that. And it's kind of odd or off-putting if you start bragging and telling stories about who you were and what you did and what awards. Really, it's kind of a taboo. Very interesting. There's an extraordinary amount of mobility in San Miguel. Many people travel in and out of the country, whoever asked that, because it was Bibi. So if you come through, this is a point. If you come through the border, airplane or drive, you can have an agent that will give you a 90-day visa or a 60-day visa or a 180-day visa. You ask for what you need, but you don't always get them, and then you have to go and have it renewed, either at the immigration or to the border or leave the country. So, the whole issue of the visa, that's as a travel tourist, which you can live on for years, although all of us that live there now, we have a lot of anxiety. Anyone have anxiety about the border? What's going to happen? Are we going to be able to cross back and forth, go back like this? I applied for and received very easily, because I'd lived there for so long, a permanent residency. And right now, a lot of people are applying for temporary and permanent residency. There's a huge amount of people. All the people that do this in San Miguel said they're totally overwhelmed with applications. And I'll talk about the difference between those, because they both require very different financial requirements, which have gone up dramatically. When I first moved there, it was like $1,000 or $2,000 a month for permanent residency. Now it's $7,000.
7,000 pesos.
Dollars a
7,000.
month.
That's
Income,
gotta be
your
your
income,
income,
income, showing income.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, I see.
Wow.
Or it's
Big
it's
difference.
just
Oh,
the
yeah.
amount in the bank.
You can have either or other. I'm going to talk about those. Okay, so people constantly travel for pleasure, medical reasons, for adventure, to meet their family, see their family. Life there is in constant motion, and there are many short-term friends. I'm talking about those of us that live there say, you know, I really liked meeting them, but then they left. It's not uncommon to feel a kind of sadness because you lose friends. You don't really understand the culture fully. I mean, as an American, Mexicans are our neighbors, but they're worlds apart. There's a phrase in Mexico called "ni modo," means, oh, so what? Yeah. I mean, my friends are like, can you believe the car sat for 10 minutes, 10 seconds, while the guy went and got a Coca-Cola from the local tienda? And that's not, Mexicans could care less. I mean, you could go in the store for an hour and they'll just sit in the taxi. You don't hear, taxis don't beep their horns. They just don't. They'll just sit there and wait. So there's an ease of which they really have a different relationship to time than we do. And that kind of, moving things along, making things happen is not part of the ethos. Shouting is not part of the ethos. Being angry is not part of the ethos. Showing your emotions. When you have employees, you have to find 10,000 ways to work around telling somebody what they did wrong. You know, the same thing would be true if you have a maid or a gardener. You don't go and say, you did a terrible job, that's really bad. You say, oh, something happened to that tree. Gosh, could you imagine why the leaves are all cut? What do you think it might be, right? You just play the language, you play the culture as they can receive it. It really comes down to communicating in a way that people can receive it. You have to learn new habits, politeness. When you are in a restaurant, you just don't walk by a table. You say buen provecho when you are at a party. My favorite, it's not done so often, but when I first moved there, if you went to a party and there were, say, 30 people, you would never walk out the back door. You just can't do that. If you're invited to a party and there are 30 people, you have to go up to each single person and say goodbye. Thank you. Nice to meet you. What's your name? I hope we see each other again. Every single person in the party, you have to say goodbye. Laura, correct me.
Yes.
It's the norm in the society to greet and talk to people and treat every single person with dignity and honor.
And to be frank, that's actually true in many other countries.
Thank you. Who was saying that?
And
Thank you. Good point.
my mother was Parisian, and you also there meet everybody and say goodbye
Yeah.
to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned it two ways because I had a company that worked with seamstresses. So when I would have a job with a seamstress, I would call her, "Hola, Flavia, when are when are the aprons going to be done?" "Buenos dias, Senora Patrice." "Oh, buenos dias, Senora Flavia." I mean, they let you know. You go up to a policeman in the center. "Where is the Hardin?" "Buenos dias, Senora." "Oh, sorry." So you're always aware that greeting people comes before the objective or the question or the need, because we lead with what we want, right?
Yeah.
They lead with courtesy.
Wow.
And Mexicans here do the same. I did precinct walking in Delano a couple of years ago, and I speak fluent Spanish, and I came up to a house. I was actually doing it for Emilio Huerta, Dolores Huerta's son, was running.
Oh, yeah.